and welcome back to Let's Talk Chicago Bears. Yeah, you know what? I think everybody's pretty happy with this loss. I cannot remember the last time I was this happy with a Bears loss. This is the kind of year it's going to be, but we've known that from the beginning of the season. I can't say how many times I said since I started my season 3 with you guys in August that this is going to be an up and down year. And if we get better each week, and then we can go into the next season, 2023, on a high note, then we're golden. And you know what? It's happening. It's happening on offense. And we're going to talk about that, but wow, what a game. Right down to the end, it was a really thrilling game. I got to tell you, you saw, like I told you on Friday, that Tua, the quarterback from Miami, can frickin' throw, and he's got receivers, and they proved it yesterday with the 302 yards the defense gave up on passing to them. But we're going to talk about all that, so it is, it's not a victory Monday, score-wise, record-wise, but you know what? In a lot of ways, it kind of is a victory Monday. You know what? Because that's how we got to look at this season, right? So let's get into it. Let's talk about, I'll give you some stats, and then we'll get into the game, okay? So we know the score was 35-32. The Bears were in it. The Bears were in it. Had that blocked punt for a field goal not happen, Bears win this game, borrowing that nothing else changed. But it is the truth, and we all know it, and that just sucked. But let's talk about things. So let's talk about my threes, what I always talk about on Friday before the game. The three things, if the Bears can control, they'll have a chance in the game, if not win it. And this does prove my philosophy. They didn't win, but they were well into this game, and it could have been won by the Bears. We know that. So the penalties, I always say 5 or less has a good chance to get you in this win. They had 4, but they had 4 yards for 92 yards, and it was less than my 5, but I'm not giving that a win because several of those penalties, the 4 of them, and 92 yards is a lot of yards for 4 penalties. So that tells you the penalties that we did get hurt. Like the defense, in the first half of the game, the defense gave Miami a couple first downs with penalties and allowed them to continue their drives. And that was bad. That really hurt us. There was one penalty that I'm not really blaming on, who was it that did it in the end zone? Doesn't matter, where he got that pass interference. And I don't really blame him because it was an underthrown ball. And usually when there's underthrown balls, I would say 80% of the time, if the receiver's in there, they're gonna smash into the defender because it's underthrown, and they're gonna get a penalty. 8 out of 10 times, and that's what happened. And so, you know what? It's kind of a little bit of both on that. I wasn't happy, obviously, because it put him down on the 1 yard line, and they ended up scoring, I believe. Although, no, you know what? I think the Bears stopped him on that. But it was still hurts. And then there was a penalty in the third quarter when the Bears offense was driving. Justin had just got a nice run for a first down, and we had a holding call back. Now it's 1st and 20, and the Bears just couldn't come back from that because, as I've said, the Bears are making strides, are getting better, but they can't overcome big penalties like that. So the penalties were under 5, but it did hurt because it was 92 yards. So think about that. So the time of possession, the Bears won that handily. They had 34 yards that they were on the field to Miami's 25, their offense. So we won that, but again, we were close to winning that game. But there was, and then my third threes is turnovers. There was no turnovers on either side. Justin got lucky again yesterday. It happened last week. It happened again where he threw an interception, but there was a penalty by both teams, so it wiped it out and he got it back. So, and that happened last week. So that's when a penalty is actually in your favor. So I kind of laugh at those, you know. Sometimes there are good penalties. Okay, so let's talk about Fields. What a day this kid had. I mean, another spectacular day. He's not killing the defenses with his passing yards yet, but boy, is he doing it with a rush. So he was 17 of 28 for yesterday with 123 yards with 3 passing touchdowns. Rock on. You know, the 123 yards, yeah, we want to get that up. I would love to see Fields get in well into the 200s in the next couple weeks. Maybe next week we're playing Detroit. Maybe it could happen. And we all know, if you watch the game, he rushed for a record-setting 178 yards with 1 touchdown. He set a record for a quarterback to rush for 178 yards, throwing 3 touchdowns, passes, and running and had a rush touchdown. So phenomenal. I mean, this kid's ability is getting better and better and better. He is getting better. You know, the thing about Justin, though, is, and it's okay right now, and I get it, he's comfortable, he wants to run, but we cannot have this continue with his career. At some point, he's going to have to start passing more than he's running. But that's okay right now, but we are, because we don't want him, we want him as our franchise quarterback, so we don't want him to take these hits all the time. A lot of times he doesn't get hit because, you know, the thing about him, I noticed yesterday, where he had a play called and he looked over, and I saw it too, there was nobody on the right side of the defense, and so he just took off and got a nice run and then how about that 61-yarder run for a touchdown? Awesome. So, you know, he's smart when it comes to it, but we don't want him to take hit after hit after hit. So, but I'm not complaining. We're just going to go with it. He set a record. This kid is talented. I'm starting to buy in a lot. You know, I was a little skeptical when we drafted him, because Ohio State does not have a good track record with quarterbacks in the NFL. They just don't. You can look it up. They don't. But I don't know. This kid could be the real deal. And he was sacked once. And for our offensive line, that is a win. Although Justin is the most sacked quarterback with 32 right now. So we'd like to see that change. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then our running backs, they didn't have a stellar day. Number 32, Montgomery, had 36 yards, and number 24, Herbert, had 23. But our total rush, week 5, and this is 5 weeks in a row, they have rushed for over 200 yards. They had a total of 252 yards rushing on Sunday. And a lot, obviously, was Justin. But our running backs, Miami did seem to stop them, because that's probably the worst day our running backs have had all season. So, but we're not complaining, right? Because we still got over 200 yards and 5th game in a row. That is just freaking awesome. Our receivers. Okay, so the receiving core was led by my man, Mr. Mooney, number 11. 43 yards, not spectacular, but he had his first receiving touchdown of the season. Right on. And I called it on Friday's show. I said it was going to happen Sunday, and it did. It did. And then our tight end, number 85, Clement, had 41 yards with 2 touchdowns. And I'm really like it, because last week he got his first touchdown since 2020, and I like how he is getting more and more involved with this offense, and this is something we desperately needed from him. And then as last week, Fields in the last game, and Dallas threw to 7 different receivers. He threw to 6 different receivers in this game, and I like it because he's throwing the ball around, you know, and he's finding out what receivers he feels most comfortable with. And you saw Claypool, number 10, was in the vein. He only made a few catches, but, you know, he just came to the Bears on Wednesday. So, you know, you can't really expect much from him. I expect more this week to happen. But, you know, we're going to talk a little bit how he was involved in something. But so that's good to see. You got Claypool, you've got Mr. Mooney, you've got number 8 Harry, you've got Pettis, 18. I didn't see St. Brown in that game. I don't know. Was he not activated? I know number 12, Venus Jones, was not activated for that game. And that's the one guy out of all these receivers who could be on the bubble. I know he's a rookie, but he could be, depending on what happens in the draft, because we need more wide receivers. We really need some good ones to go up. Like Claypool, I believe, is 6'4", and we need more of that. And that's what I said on Friday. If Claypool could be just turn out to be all that, like we're hoping, he could be number 1, and Mr. Mooney could be number 2. I love Mr. Mooney, but he is more of a number 2 receiver. But he'll go and get you those yards yet. Once they start targeting Claypool more, then he'll get more opportunities. So I'd like to see that. Special teams. Well, let's talk about the defense, who did not have a stellar game, as we know. It's kind of funny. It isn't. It isn't. You know, for years and years and years, the Bears' identity has been their defense. Since really, well, it's been their identity, even when they won the Super Bowl in '85. But we had an offense then too. But their their defense has been their identity, and now it's flipped, and our identity is becoming the offense, which we are all digging. We could not wait. We want a franchise quarterback and score. So it's kind of weird how the tables have turned, but those defensive problems will be addressed in the offseason. We know we got rid of Quinn and Roquan Smith. 2 big things. And yeah, it hurt, but it was done for the future of the franchise, and players got to do that. And the thing about the defense is next man up. We'll find out the youngsters that are on this team who want to play in the NFL and want to play for the Chicago Bears next year. This is their tryout the rest of the season. Like, you know, at linebacker, number 57, Sanborn, homegrown kid. He was in the game. He made some tackles. I wouldn't say he was spectacular. Jack is supposed to have a very high IQ, but he's not overly quick. He's not huge, but if he can make that IQ to his advantage, he could turn to be a solid linebacker. So let's see. There was a couple other kids that stepped up, but the defense is hurting. And I talked about this on Friday. They don't have a good defensive line, so that's why they can't stop the run. I predicted that Miami was going to come out and run a lot, and even the announcers were kind of surprised they didn't. They ran, but not super a lot. I thought they were going to take advantage of it, but they didn't. So they just killed the Bears with 302 passing yards. So it did show that our backfield, this was the biggest test for our backfield, I said, and I think the backfield was intimidated, especially these rookies, Brisker and number 6, Gordon. I think because they played off a lot, which allowed them to get those yards they needed. I mean, Tyreek Hill he had 961 yards passing, receiving going into this game, which is phenomenal for week 9. He ended up passing that. He's into the thousands now, which is amazing. So they got some good receivers, and it definitely showed yesterday. We had no sacks, so the Bears gave up 302 yards passing and 77 yards rushing with no sacks or no turnovers. So the defense did not have a spectacular day, that's for sure. But the defense actually gave up 28 points, not 35, because what really hurt the Bears yesterday is, and I've told you, they can't overcome mistakes. They have to win these games, they have to mistake-free game, and they did not. The special teams, as we all know, had a bunt cake? a punt blocked, and it was running for a touchdown. And that's the difference. That don't happen, Bears win the game. Simple as that. That's one thing how the Bears could have won the game, by avoiding that. So that really hurt. That does not go on the defense. That's special teams. And that is something that they're going to work on in the offseason, because our special teams has been average at best. Another thing that happened in this game, it was in the fourth quarter, and we all know what it is. It was around down the 10-yard line. Fields threw a great pass to Claypool, number 10, our new guy, and he had two guys all over his ass. The one guy had two arms around him. That was pass interference. That was so bad. That it was like pass interference 101 ref. And there was a ref standing right there. What was he sleeping with his eyes open? I mean, what? Did the time change throw him off? I don't get it. You know, the Bears, I believe sometimes that teams that have losing records do not get the calls they should deserve. And had that gotten called like it should have, and every show I've seen since last night and today, everyone said that was pass interference. And if that wasn't pass interference, I'm Jennifer Aniston, and I'm just saying. But if the Bears get pass interference, first down on the 10-yard line, they could have scored at least a field goal, and then the game's tied. So, two bad things that happened. One was on the Bears, and one was on the refs, and it was bullshit. So, we know that. And the Bears defense, the other thing, they only stopped Miami once on third and with a 3-and-out. That's all they did the entire game. So if you're going to do that, you're not going to win. Our defense, we know we have problems. Off season, I'm telling you, it's going to be fixed because they're starting to get the offense. We know what we have to do there. We need some offensive linemen. We need defensive linemen and linebackers, okay? So, and, of course, wide receivers. So the defense, I'm afraid, people, is pretty much going to be up and down. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I know those trades were hard, and the defensive team was really bummed, but these youngsters have to look. They're making moves for the Chicago Bears and for the Chicago Bears franchise. And I will tell you this, I really loved it. Coach Flus, in his speech to the team after the game, one of the things he said to them is, this game, young men, was good for you as a Chicago Bear, how you guys stayed in it, you fought to the end, you scored points, and it's extremely good, he said, for the Bears franchise. And I like that. I mean, really awesome. And the Bears, when you think about it, the offense scored 4 touchdowns and a field goal and a 2-point conversion. I mean, I'm digging it. I am digging it. And I think when Claypool gets more involved, I think we're going to see a lot more. I mean, a lot more. So the future is looking super bright for us. And if you can't see that, then you're really not a Chicago Bear. And I know everybody wants to win, of course, but that was a moral victory for the Bears yesterday. It really was. And here's an interesting stat, which I think you're going to like. So, the worst game we had score-wise was that Thursday night game when they lost 7-12. I mean, shit. Pee Wee football scores more points than that. But listen to this stat. The first 6 games of the season, the Bears scored a total offensively of 93 points. In the last 3 games, they've scored 97. So you see how it's turning? I mean, that's phenomenal that they could score. They only scored that much. And then the last 3, they've scored in 3 games, all of that. So very encouraging. I don't think there was any real injuries to this. It was nice to see Cody Whitehair back in the game. So, the offensive line still got some problems, but they're getting a little bit better each week. We're seeing it, and hopefully they can get better each week to get us through this season, to keep getting Justin more and more experience. And I would like to see the Bears throwing downfield a little bit more. A lot of short passes yesterday, and it's probably because Justin's just not comfortable maybe with his wide receiver core or his offensive line. But when he did throw some passes down the field, they weren't fucking caught. And that's a problem, okay? I mentioned this last week, if he's getting it there, frickin' catch the ball. That's what you're being paid for, guys. So, it's just something they got to work on. So, a lot of good things in this game. I mean, digging it so much. It's unbelievable. And what Coach Flu said I really liked that, when he said to this guy, this was a big game for you guys, and it was a good game for the Chicago Bears and the franchise. See, him and Poles are building. Like I said Friday, they haven't done this since the late 70s, early 80s with Jim Finks as their GM, where they built youth and from the ground up. And it lasted years. We only won one Super Bowl. Should have been two, but we're not going to get into that. But we were good for a long time in those 80s and early 90s. So I commend what Coach Flus and GM Poles are doing it. Keep doing it. We have a lot of money to spend in the offseason. So 2023, man, I think the Bears are going to change the narrative in our division. And what's really cool is the tide is changing Green Bay. Poor Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions yesterday. Wah, wah, wah. And they have the same schedule as, same record, 3-6. So I know it sucks that we have 3-6, but the fact that Green Bay, they're worse than we are. This is just phenomenal. I am digging it. And I have been saying for the last, I don't know, probably 6-7 years, the tide's got to change. Where for a long time, I know you guys probably don't remember that, the Bears dominated Green Bay, and then started in the 90s, and therefore after the middle 90s and thereafter, Green Bay took over. So now it's flipping, and now you know what? It's the Bears' turn to be on top for a long time, and this kid, barring any kind of injuries, is our franchise future, people. And if the Bears keep building it around him, which they are. When was the last time the Bears worked on the offense first? I mean, it's been a really long time. So they're getting it. They know what they do. And Coach Flus, remember, he's a defensive coordinator. Well, a coordinator, because that's what he was before he became a head coach. So I have all the confidence in him that he's going to fix this defense going into 2023. He's going to get rid of some more people, and then they're going to draft, and they're going to sign free agents. So it's going to probably be a tough rest year for the Bears. I was kind of looking at their schedule, and realistically, I think their record could be 7 and 10. Or it could be 6-11. I don't see any more than that. I would be cool with 7-10, because there are some. Well, the 2 roughest games are after their bye, in December, which really sucks. We have a terrible late bye. Is right after their bye in December is Philadelphia and then the Bills. And if those 2 teams play like they are, those are losses. We've got Detroit in there twice. We've got Minnesota in there. We've got Atlanta and the Jets. So there's some winnable games for sure. And I'd like to see it start this Sunday with Detroit back at home in Soldier Field. Because even though, thank you, Detroit, you made Green Bay look bad yesterday, rock and roll, I think we could beat them. So a lot of positives there. I mean, I don't think I've ever been this happy with a loss. I mean it. And, this is what it is. And I've had people write on my comments, I don't care, I want to win. Well, of course you do. But the reality is it's a rebuild. And it's a major rebuild. I mean, people, think about it. In your lifetime, when have you seen the Bears do this? Depending on your age, right? So let's just enjoy it. Hope he gets better and better each week, and I think he's going to. I'm just digging this. I had my buddy where I do my podcast with on Wednesdays. He was at the game, and he said it was a blast. Unfortunately, he didn't bring a win home, but that's okay. It was a good game. Again, that punt doesn't get blocked for a touchdown. Bears win. That penalty gets called on the 10-yard line in the fourth quarter. Bears, if not, tie it up or go ahead. So, I know woulda, shoulda, coulda, but you know what? It is the truth here, people. It is the truth. So that's really it for the show. So I was thinking, somebody asked me on the last show, on my podcast that I share with Dan that I do Sunday nights, and he had asked me to list my top 5 Bears of all time that I like, my favorites, not the Bears players who are great, but my favorites. So I thought I'd list those today. Some you might not agree with, but this is mine. So the first one, hands down, Walter Payton. I mean, hands down, loved him. Greatest, I don't care what anybody says, greatest running back in the league. And my second one, which I don't think this really counts, but I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to add a caveat to it, is Dick Butkus. But I didn't see Dick play because I didn't start watching until 75, but I've seen a lot of film, and I loved, what he did. He was a mean son of a bitch on the field. So him, and then, I thought about the defense of the 85 Bears. I mean, it's really too difficult to pick one of them out. So my second favorite, does Dick Butkus count? I don't know. I'm going to say the entire Bears defense of 85, just 85. My third favorite is a gentleman. He was number 46. He played with the Bears back in the late 70s and 80s, Doug Plank. This guy was freaking awesome. I mean, of course, you can't play like that anymore. But so there'd be, plays going on, and all of a sudden, they tackle this guy. You always waited about 10 seconds, and boom, Doug Plank would come flying onto the pile. He'd be the last one, and he always jumped on it. He did it week and week out. And this guy could freaking hit. He was a safety, I believe. Anyways, linebacker, safety, doesn't matter. But I love Doug Plank. And Buddy Ryan, if you know this or not, I don't know how you know that, but when Buddy Ryan was the defensive quarterback in the 80s, he named his defense, and everybody still calls it that, the 46 defense, and it became very, very popular. And people still, like I said, talk about it. But he named it after Doug Plank, and that was his number because he said, I've never seen a player week in, week out, play and hit as hard as he did. I love Doug Plank. He was always the last one on the pile. It made us laugh all the time. And then my fourth favorite is Matt Suhey. He was the fullback to Walter Payton. And Matt played his whole career with the Bears in the 80s, and he was phenomenal. Him and Walter, the 1-2 punch, and he opened so many holes for Walter, and he was an unsung hero. And he was just there day in and day out, and him and Walter were like this. Just phenomenal. Matt Suhey, not a lot of credit, but Walter always gave Matt the due, saying, he helped me get those yards. I loved Matt Suhey. Just a great, great player. And then my fifth one, Peanut Tillman. I have to go with him. He was so fantastic to watch. A superhuman being. He would punch out those balls. I mean, you could always count on him. And he was just something special. And he still comes and talks to the Bears, gives them motivational speeches, and he was it. So these are my 5 top all-time Bear favorites for me. Now, if you guys want to list in your comments what yours are, or you want, you can't really dispute it because they're my favorites. And I hate to point this out, this is my show. So that's it. So I thought I'd just add that. So great game yesterday. Unfortunately, we came up 3 points short, but people, I can't say this enough. The future is bright. Isn't that a song? Who's that from? The future is bright. Oh, well. Anyway, so that's it. And on that note, I'm going to sign off like I usually do. I'm getting down to my time. I time myself now. I just wanted to tell you that I always do this. On Wednesday nights, I do a podcast. Podcast tag name is Bears Country Podcast, and the show title is The Lowdown with Dan and Lynn. And Dan and I have a great time. A lot of people are starting to watch us. Check us out. We're both lifelong Bear fans. Dad now resides in Atlanta. I'm in Vegas, but we ended up, after we just got together this year, long story, but it turns out we lived a few miles apart in Lake County, Illinois. He grew up, because he's 20 years younger than me, from me. So this is just perfect. And Dan's Optimistic is so much fun. So check us out. It's on Wednesday nights. Sometimes we do live broadcasts, and they usually start at 5:30 Eastern time and 2:30 Pacific time. But if it's live, and then if you can't catch it live, you can catch the recording. So check it out. It's a great show. And of course, keep watching me and tell everybody about me because I rock, baby. And I love my Bears. This old lady is a fan. All right. And again, as I always sign off my show, I love you. Thank you for watching. Be kind to one another. Give somebody a helping hand if they need it. Stop hate and smile. Smile at people. Make conversation. People are under so much stress right now. We need to stick together to get through these. And if anybody is tough, it's Bears fans. So let's be tough together because we need it. All right. So I will see you on Friday. We will go over the Detroit game. And go Bears, baby! Woo, 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 woo! And as always, keep on rocking and rolling from Vegas, baby.